How are we doing today? Okay, we are a small but mighty group, so I just forewarn you, before we get into all the activities, that you will be a part of the conversation. So I apologize in advance if you thought you were going to be able to kind of sit and observe. So please blame me for that. My name is Dr. Atyia Martin. I am the executive director for a nonprofit called Next Leadership Development. I'm going to hold on to this, see if we can make sure we're still connected here. Hey, all right, progress. I'm with a nonprofit called Next Leadership Development, and we convene the Black Resilience Network, which we'll go into more details on. But just so that you know who's in front of you, the most important things to know about me is that my husband and I have 5 children, 2 still at home, 5 grandbabies, and everything I know about emergency management, resilience, and understanding racism and racial justice and how to explain that to people came from that life. So that's where it all started for me. And it's just a pleasure to be here with you all. Professionally, I was an emergency manager. I was a certified emergency manager in the city of Boston. I was the director of public health preparedness when the city of Boston experienced the marathon bombings, and so my team coordinated all of the public health and healthcare response to that. We were activated for the full activation for over a month, and then partially activated for 2 years associated with that, because we were in charge of long-term recovery. Go figure. And not in the traditional long-term recovery group sense. So we'll come back to that a little bit later. But for context, that's kind of the lens through which I first started in this world. And now I'm on the other side, having to advocate with emergency managers and VOAD and other things to support Black communities across the country. And we'll go into more detail on that. So that's who I am. Pleasure to be here with you today. Pleasure to meet you. And I'm going to pass it over to my amazing colleague, Dr. Annelle Primm.
Thank you, Dr. Martin, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Annelle Primm. I'm a community psychiatrist based in Baltimore, Maryland, and I serve as the leader of the All Healers Mental Health Alliance, which came together in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina. And since then, the group has been facilitating culturally grounded responses to the mental health needs of communities, typically Black and others that occupy marginalized spaces in all sorts of disasters, both natural and human caused. And so we've been going strong for almost 20 years. So it'll be our 20th anniversary in August. And we have been involved in numerous disasters, and we are a founding member of the Black Resilience Network under the fantastic leadership of Dr. Martin. So back to you, Dr. Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Primm. Appreciate you. We get to hang out a lot, and as we go through this, you'll see why. So just so that you have a lay of the land, know where we're going in this conversation, we've already done our welcomes and introductions. Can folks hear me in the back okay with this live mic? Okay, cool. We'll talk, we're gonna have a moment of dedication for one of our Black Resilience Network members that we lost this year in January. We're gonna see who's in the room with us, so we all know who's here. We'll give you an overview of the Black Resilience Network. We'll do a bit of an interactive quiz, nothing, too hard. And then we'll talk about what we've accomplished and what we've learned. And that's where we're also going to introduce you to several of our members and partners and allies who are here with us today to share their experiences. And then we'll wrap up with opportunities for collaboration, because that's why we're all here. So with that said, I'm going to leave the dedication for the wonderful honorary mayor, Tanya DeBose. Her family was actually one of the founding families of a historic Black town called Independence Heights, which was annexed into Houston in the 40s, not necessarily, basically against their will, but it became a ward of Houston. So she was the honorary mayor of this neighborhood, given her connection to the history and her leadership as an advocate for the community with the city, with the state, with federal government, and she had this particular expertise in historic and cultural preservation. And she was always challenging us to think about what is the connection to the history of why we're seeing what we're seeing, why communities are experiencing what they're experiencing, and how we make sure that we look up that history and that communities own that history, get to decide how it's preserved, and how we bring it back to life and honor it after disasters. So, want to thank and honor the wonderful Mayor Tanya DeBose, as we call her, integral part of the work that we've done. She's one of our founding members. With that said, we're going to do a little bit of who's in the room. So, we're going to do this pretty old school / new school. So, we don't have emojis for y'all. We're not going to make you scan anything or anything like that. But we are going to ask you to use your thumb and raise your hand if you're part of one of these groups. And we're going to continue to use that format. So how many people are members of the National VOAD, or including associate members and partners? Okay, we got a big chunk of the room that's part of the National VOAD officially. What about state VOADs? Okay, what about national nonprofits that are not VOAD? Not VOAD. And okay, we have 2 in the room. Thank you so much. Any emergency managers? Hey! Emergency managers supporting the VOADs. Appreciate you all. Any community-based organizations in the room? Okay, appreciate you, see you. Thank you for all your work you do in communities. Any Black Resilience Network members in the room? So we got the panel. We have the wonderful Mr. Joseph. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, please.
I know you do.
She gets on me. She teases me a lot.
I think I love you.
I love you too, and appreciate you. Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Daniels. I'm president and CEO of the Jose Group LLC, and one of the founding members of the Black Resilience Network. I have 2 companies. The other company that I have does strategic development for nonprofits, and I try to do as best as I can to interface with nonprofits that are in the disaster emergency space. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Round of applause. And you will hear from all of our other members. Anyone in here ever partner with the Black Resilience Network? Okay.
I had lunch. I had breakfast with one.
That counts.
I'm on my way.
Yes.
Benny is one step closer to being a partner.
Very good.
So just to give you a little bit of context, so the Black Resilience Network really was started because of 2 folks who are not in the room. Marcus Coleman, who used to be with the DHS, Center for Faith-Based and Community Initiatives, and Nicole Wood, who is also with the same organization, and is still there. Marcus Coleman is now, as you all know, with United Way Worldwide. But really, Nicole Wood encouraged us to convene a group of Black women who were in emergency management in different spaces, and we all had this virtual convening. And then some of us followed up with each other, and Dr. Primm and I connected. And then we just starting trouble, and then we started reaching out to other people to start trouble.
Good trouble.
Good trouble. Healthy trouble.
Yes.
Keep the spirit alive. We said we should probably formalize this, give it a name, and reach out to folks and be more intentional about what we're doing. So we convened a founding group of Black Resilience Network members. And all of our work really is meant to support leadership development, collaboration, and investment in Black communities, both historic Black towns, as well as communities directly and in organizations who are supporting that kind of invisible, or part of that invisible ecosystem of disaster resilience. Bless you. These are a number of our founding members, so I'm gonna leave that up there for a hot moment because I know some people want to take some pictures. Some of them are national organizations, some of them are hyper-local, but all of them critical to how we thought about who we are and what kind of work we could accomplish. And then here's I'm going to skip the executive committee because it's a lot of the same members. And then here are a sample of our members from across the country. Again, some national, some local, but most of our work is really focused on tapping into the awesomeness of all of these organizations to support each other post-disaster, particularly recovery. So yes, we get involved in response, and we'll show you some examples of that, but our focus really is recovery when everyone has left. When it's a presidentially declared disaster, and for those non-declared disasters, we show up when the little bit of attention it may have gotten gone. And we again directly support organizations. We have a number of partners, and they're not all represented here, but I do want to shout out Center for Disaster Philanthropy because they have been a huge partner in helping us make sure that grant funding gets to community-based organizations on the ground. So we generally will try to work hard to make sure that they're aware of community organizations who are connected to community members, but are not necessarily part of VOAD. They don't know anything about the state VOAD or emergency management. They are just trying to help their communities, and they're doing that because the community is coming to them looking for help because they already have a relationship. And for us, we have 4 key priority areas. One is historic and cultural preservation, thanks to Honorary Mayor Tanya DeBose. Disaster mitigation and preparedness, disaster response and recovery with a heavy focus on recovery, and organizational capacity building. And as we go through, you'll see concrete examples of the types of capacity building we have to support folks through on the ground. And some of it is surprising, it's not directly related to disaster response and recovery in many cases. So here we get to the quiz, and then I get to pass it over to Dr. Primm. So the first question is a yes or no question. And again, we're going to use our thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, no, okay? All right, this is opinion, so it's not, it's not a test. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. Have Black communities been relegated to live in more vulnerable areas? Okay, we have some people saying yes. Okay. All right, here's question number 2. Does living in vulnerable areas contribute to disparities in everyday life and after disaster? Okay, so fundamentally we're on the same page. Ooh. Now here's the third question. How does living in vulnerable areas contribute to disparities in everyday life? Now, I warned you, I gave you a little space, right? So now it's time for you all. Yes, ma'am.
Accessibility to resources.
Accessibility to resources, right? Okay, who else? Thank you for kicking us off. You get a gold star. It's invisible, virtually. What else? Food deserts, right? And so for some advocates, I've heard them refer to it as food apartheid. Mm-hmm.
Health issues based on being near a landfill, for example, or I can think of others in our own community.
Health issues because of being near toxic sites. Thank you. I saw another hand.
Yeah, heat islands.
Heat islands, right? And then we can talk about some of the environmental impacts of that, right? What are some of the other things that might be related to heat island?
Oh, not related.
Oh, no, you go ahead and
I
be
was
there.
going to say housing after a disaster.
Yes.
Housing is an insurance. When I work with our clients with the Red Cross, they don't know about insurance, about renter's insurance. And then they're priced out of the market.
So some of the things that are related to preparedness for folks to navigate disasters when it comes to renter's insurance and not knowing that it is even an option. Lack of economic development, right? So there's in places where there is an underinvestment and other places received an overinvestment. Okay? What else? I thought I saw you. Go ahead, Vinny.
One's about half and half. I think there's trust. Who I can trust, and maybe even education of what is available to me in, how does this system work about emergency management.
Who I can trust, right? There's a difference between mistrust and distrust, right? Distrust, there's evidence. People have had experiences. There's a history, past and present, like history in terms of like yesterday, of people who, communities where they've had these negative experiences interacting with institutions in everyday life and have had long-term impact. And so there's a trust component there. Thank you for that. Let's.
National awareness and national awareness around
National and international awareness around more vulnerable communities. Can you tell me more about what you mean by that?
there's not a lot of visibility around
Exactly. The invisibility of it all. It's almost unless you have been told about it or know about it, if it's not your experience, it's kind of invisible to you unless someone shows you. Yes, ma'am.
access to educational tools. I know that they have training and injunction and we walk around every year. It takes a lot of people on their homes, but they didn't realize they had to still have insurance on those homes.
Access to educational tools, not just in terms of formal education, but what it means to truly be prepared for not just for response, but for recovery, right? Including insurance and understanding what we need from insurance in order to rebuild our homes. Any last thoughts on the daily life?
Respect. Respect is a
Respect as a community. Do you mean receiving lack of respect in the community? So lack of respect for the community. Yes, there's a lot of times folks come into Black communities and they want to tell them what to do and how to do it. And it's kind of a extremer version of what we see in communities where folks kind of just come into most communities and want to tell them what to do and how to do it. And in Black communities, it's a bit heightened for lots of different historical reasons that many of you are aware of and ideas that people have about what is possible. Now let's talk about after disasters.
So, I run a program that helps disaster survivors access more funds from FEMA, and it's been written numerous times that BIPOC communities after a disaster are even more economically disadvantaged, and those white communities tend to be better off than before the disaster.
Yeah, so it decreases the current wealth that Black communities have accumulated and increases wealth in more middle class affluent white communities and sometimes even poor communities. Yes, ma'am. More vulnerable to scams. And what do you mean?
Contracting scams. They just come in saying that they want help, and then for instance, we had one lady, trees were in the yard, they were uprooted, and contractor people that say they started working, but after you finish, you don't have to pay.
Vulnerable to scams and people taking advantage of the disaster situation.
So all of the issues that you see after disasters, you put that on top of everything that we just said.
Yeah, everybody heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have lots of affirmations. Thank you for naming that explicitly. Any other thoughts, Pastor Carter?
I know that I keep meeting the same people. If they're in a disadvantaged geographical area that continually floods, then I get to keep meeting them because there aren't options for them to move.
So the cycle of persistent exposure to disasters and impacts. I'm going to come here, I'm going to get displacement risk directly from the disaster, and many of our members have named gentrification as a part of that displacement, almost an acceleration of it. Yes, ma'am.
We go back to visibility. The national press will leave the communities much faster, so that those humanitarian resources that would come to a community it's out of the news cycle, it's out of people's minds.
Yes, it's not as supported in the traditional media which then has a direct impact on people's consciousness so that they can donate, as well as some of the VOAD organizations and other partners who might be able to actually help people. I'm gonna come here and then here.
Yeah, I was thinking like a lack of empathy provided from people outside of the community because of their preconceived notions and biases about that community. So thinking about like how after Katrina, a lot of the Black community of New Orleans was seen as being like looters, but like white people doing the same thing are seen as like saving themselves, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, how assumptions about Black communities and stereotypes and narratives reinforce the ability for us to have empathy, but also see them as actual survivors and not folks who deserve or somehow got themselves into those types of situations.
Yes. Yeah, I'll refer to like Anaheim with generational wealth. I feel like wealth being tied into land, houses, physical structures, and so when those disappear, like the legal constraints of keeping that land, rebuilding on it, and so it's more something physical that I feel like that kind of misunderstanding, or again getting back to that empathy of having people like build that up again after generations.
Everyone heard that? The physical infrastructure, building it up. Okay, I see
I
that.
don't need the mic. My response would be sort of dovetails what you say. Is that when there are dollars available, they are diverted to support the economic aspect of the community, and they disregard or ignore the residential community. So that sort of, it prolongs their recovery.
So money is invested more in the economic side of things and not in the people side of things. And we've seen that play out in a number of counties and lots of different states and disasters. And in many instances, what we've seen, and I'm going to be quiet on this in your transition, is that in some areas there isn't a lot of nonprofit infrastructure. So places like the Chamber of Commerce get tapped to be fiscal sponsors, and that then creates a whole nother layer of complications in terms of what does it mean to take money that has been invested in disaster recovery to support communities.
I think there was another point over here, sir.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for holding me accountable.
It's okay. Just to kind of dovetail off that, I'd say the lack of investment in resiliency and mitigation, which contributes to continued, disparities after disasters, and especially when they've been force placed over time into those neighborhoods and areas, which they now call home. It's either stay there and continue to face disasters, or move and leave everything behind.
Yes, thank you so much for naming that. Did everyone hear that in the back?
Well said.
Very well said. Thank you so much, and thank you, because that was an important point. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to hand off to my wonderful colleague, Dr. Primm, to kick us off on what we've accomplished, starting with our Black Emergency Management Operations Center.
Okay, thank you. So what we've accomplished, I'm just going to make a couple of points, Dr. Martin, before launching into the Operations Center. We can't do anything unless we connect with people in the community. And so the engaging and collaboration with community leaders, community advocates is the number one thing we have learned. Also listening and learning about what the local landscape is, the geography, the politics, the history. All of that is important to really understand what you're dealing with. Thirdly, asking the critical questions, not just passively listening to the reports of the number of homes that were damaged or the number of volunteers that were recruited. There's some other critical questions that need to be asked, and we found that as outsiders, it may be easier for us to ask the questions, and we can provide cover for some of the people from that community. Connecting people and organizations to resources, local, state, and federal. So moving on to the Operations Center, the Black Resilience Network was launched in February of 2023 at the White House, so it was really a big deal. And just a few weeks later, the Mississippi tornadoes of 2023, some of you who know the lingo DR 4697, which is emblazoned in my mind. And when that happened, this was a disaster in our poorest state in the nation, and in the poorest section of the poorest state, in the Mississippi Delta primarily. And it also happens to be the blackest state, and the blackest part of the blackest state. And I said to Dr. Martin, I think we need to get moving on this. This is ours to get involved in, and really out of that realization emerged our Emergency Operations Center. And we were fortunate that Mr. Joseph Daniels had met Mavis Crea, who was at the time the vice president of Mississippi VOAD. And she very kindly invited us to have a presence on the Mississippi VOAD coordination calls. And that was very much has been a part of my life over the past 2 years, sitting with that group and listening and learning, just as I was describing. And so these are some of the things that Dr. Martin and I did, and others in the Emergency Operations Center, identifying and documenting unmet needs, doing some of the homework and background work, trying to help connect the dots and, feed information to people who are part of that group, advocate for unmet needs to be addressed. And sometimes maybe, speaking out of turn, stepping on some toes to make sure that things that were being said were not getting dropped and swept under the rug. Facilitate equitable response and recovery resources, helping again to make some of those connections, making sure folks were not left out who may not be visible, as some of you pointed out in the earlier discussion, supporting access to funding during response and recovery. And we were able to leverage some of our relationships that we had just formed at the 2023 National VOAD Conference with the Center for Disaster Philanthropy to help some of our partners get some of the funding they very much needed and otherwise would not have even been known about. And then, supporting and then providing experts for response and recovery advice. We are fortunate to have a relationship with FEMA and the Red Cross and other organizations who have been very helpful in providing expertise and their advice. And so I'll now turn things over to Dr. Martin to explain in more detail. I mean, she's the real emergency manager here, let's face it, and she'll talk more about the Emergency Operations Center.
Thank you. So, there we go. So when we activate the Operations Center, we've learned a lot over the years. And so we always start with a member or partner who's actually involved and on the ground. We've had people who have heard about something, but they're not actually in the state or in that community impacted. We sometimes get folks who are connected to other folks in communities that are relatives, but aren't able to actually engage in the ways that are necessary in order to help facilitate support. So we are intentional about leveraging our network and doing the, calling and emailing and all the stuff you do to reach folks, 2 and 3 and 4, sometimes 6 degrees of separation in order to make sure that we're connecting with the right folks in communities who are on the ground, Black-led organizations. And then Community Communication Center, folks will call, sometimes people will email, and let us know that there has been something that's happened in a community. One of our partners is not in the room, Mr. Earl Brown from the American Red Cross, is always intentional about sharing information with us about impacts in communities that may be appropriate for us to get involved in with our limited resources. And then we will activate the Operations Center. And when we activate, it really is pretty straightforward. Don't let this incident command system chart, it's pretty and all of that. But basically, it's just Dr. Primm and folks who are from her network are helping with operations and connecting with folks on the ground helping to coordinate resources with partners and different members within the Black Resilience Network, as well as our partners and other national organizations. Sometimes we have to come up with creative solutions. We have to go over and under and through, around, all types of ways that we have to sometimes help bring resources in. And that's where Next Leadership Development, my nonprofit, comes in, that we document all of that information. So we're the nerds and the tech geeks and all that other stuff. And so we'll document all of the different unmet needs. Dr. Primm or some other designee will be on a VOAD call or connected with folks who are other members who are regularly attending VOAD calls to get the information documented and then begin to connect resources with the needs. On the logistics side, we do all the technology stuff. If we have to travel somewhere, we're the ones who coordinate all the travel. We are not boots on the ground though, just to be clear. Like the community organizations that we work with, they are the boots on the ground that we work with, in addition to the other folks who are allies and partners. Where we generally will help to support events, convenings, to bring folks together who haven't necessarily been able to meet each other and work together before the disaster, as well as opportunities for funding. And then finally, admin and finance. We do all of that stuff too. So if we have to purchase things, if we have to fiscally sponsor an organization so that they can get funding, we'll do that. That's kind of, we're like the fiscal sponsor of last resort though. That's not our primary function in life. But if we have to, we will. And we've done that in the past for some of our partners. So with that said, we're going to transition into more storytelling from our actual members who will introduce themselves. First, I'm going to mention that one of the things that we do in terms of documenting what's happening with the disaster is through the Emergency Operations Center is our SITREP. They started out very traditional SITREP-y, lots of words and dates and lists and stuff, and we found that to quickly become unwieldy. And we have one for when we started with Mississippi, and then we created a national one as we started getting involved in more disasters. And we quickly found that it wasn't necessarily the best use of our resources to do it in that way. Oh, sorry, let me go back. I saw you trying to get the picture. Yes, sir.
Are these on the app?
They are. The slides are on the app. And then we evolved to a SITREP that was more interactive. And that way we didn't have to keep pulling up data for different counties and different areas that were impacted and all of those things. It's actually a map that you can click on the impacted areas, and it will bring up the demographic data for that area, by race, by income, as well as a number of other indicators associated with the community, things related to climate resilience and threats from climate change, all the way over to access to infrastructure investments and other economic indicators. We also started integrating in a bit more information about how we were connecting with folks on the ground. This is an example from Mississippi. The most recent incident in Mississippi, where we were tracking for each of the 22 counties impacted, and I don't know how many folks know that from April 2nd to April 6th, there were at least 14 tornadoes that touched down in Mississippi. And so we were able to partner with folks on the ground to get a better sense of what was the actual impact on the ground in the community by reaching out to emergency management directors, as well as other partners in different parts of the counties that we knew were impacted. So the same counties that you see highlighted here are the same counties that you see listed here.
Quick
yes,
question.
sir.
Excellent map, excellent data. There are multiple incidences.
Yes.
And the challenge is trying to keep up with all of them, especially in those areas in Region 6, Region 4. How do you do that?
We don't. We don't try to be all things to everybody and keep up with every single disaster, even though that's where the adrenaline rush is. And everyone's like, do you know about this? What are you doing about this one? And what about this one? And we just don't have the capacity and the resources to do that. So we rely on our network to connect us with folks in different areas who are leading work in their communities. And that's how we gauge. So that graph that shows kind of a member or a partner reaches out to us and says, hey, there's this community-based organization that is really doing the work and they're just struggling to navigate all of this VOAD emergency management stuff. And then that's how we get connected and get involved in different disasters.
It goes back to a question or a response that I heard before in terms of meeting the same people over and over again. And to ensure that their needs are met. In some cases, needs still need to be met.
Yes, yeah, and that's why we're involved for so long. All the organizations and disasters that we started with, we're still with. So, you know, so it becomes less of a pivoting from different things to an accumulation. Welcome to the family. And so we're kind of with our partners over the long term. So I'm going to begin to transition to talk specifically about Mississippi, and I think you had this slide to transition to our conversation about Mississippi.
Sure, and so we were fortunate to meet through Mississippi VOAD, Mississippi Urban League, Dr. Portia Espy and her team. We were able to, through our connection with the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, when they were making their southern tour in the fall of 2023, we asked if they might visit us, meet with us at Mississippi Urban League, and we were going to invite a number of community-based organizations who were doing the work related to DR 4697. And so this is some photos from that event. And as you can see, Tracy Hadley is standing up. She's here on the panel. We'll be talking next. But it brought a number of individuals from the community, different religious groups, farmers were represented, and so it was a successful event. And hopefully Tracy Hadley will tell us about that now.
Wherever you're most comfortable.
Can sit here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am humbled to, this says stand, but I'm sitting, before you today. I am the founder and executive director of Love Without Walls, a faith-based organization dedicated to serving individuals in underserved and marginalized communities throughout Mississippi. I also serve as the secretary of the executive board of the Mississippi VOAD. I'm also the recipient of the 2025 National Spirit Award.
Woo!
Concerning the work we do at Love Without Walls, I'm thankful for so many who have supported us, many who are here today. At this moment, I want to express my deep gratitude to the Black Resilience Network for their unwavering support and encouragement. The Black Resilience Network has played a vital role in assisting Love Without Walls to address the needs of individuals in underserved, marginalized communities in a way that is compassionate and free of malice. There have been many times I am playing nice and others are not. It can be frustrating. With collaboration meetings with the Black Resilience Network, I'm able to learn more ways to advocate in a way that ensures all are seen, heard, and supported, especially those who, because of systemic barriers, are somewhat voiceless. As someone committed to advocacy, I am inspired by how collective support and understanding can drive meaningful change. The collaboration with the Black Resilience Network has been instrumental in assisting us to fulfill our very mission, which is embodying the transformative power of love, empathy, and solidarity. We are steadfast in our mission to create communities where every individual is seen, heard, and supported, leaving no one left behind on their path to healing and renewal. This, especially during times of disaster and crisis. In our work, we believe strongly in the power of the 4 C's: cooperation, communication, coordination, and collaboration. These elements are vital in ensuring that every voice is heard and every community's needs are met. It's through partnerships like this we can truly make a difference and build resilient, empowered communities. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share, and I look forward to learning more and exploring ways we can continue to work together to uplift our communities and create lasting change. In the days we live in, so many people are being excluded because of the color of their skin, their religious belief, what they believe in general, and so much more. Every day I think it's important that we, concerning love, ask our Creator to create in us a clean heart, for it is within the heart all of our feelings and everything that we do flow from. Many will say that they don't see color. I think it's important that we do see color. We see our differences. They're beautiful. When you look at me, I want you to see a black woman. A black woman who loves all mankind, but dedicated to ensuring that the voices of the individuals in the underserved and marginalized communities are seen and heard. Thank you.
Well done.
I have to do this. Sorry, y'all. Bam.
So, at the 2023 National VOAD, I participated in a workshop, and Reverend Mark Dibelka was a participant, and he came up to me, and he, I guess, heard that I was a psychiatrist and heard about the work of the All Healers Mental Health Alliance, and asked if I could help him and his community of Weed, California, to deal with some of the trauma and loss that had occurred in the aftermath of a horrible fire that occurred in October 2022. Many of us on the East Coast hadn't even heard about it really, because it happened right around the time that Hurricane Ian hit Florida, and that's where a lot of the media attention was going. But this fire disaster decimated the Black community of Weed, which had been there for close to 100 years, maybe longer, in a logging town, a lumber mill. And this community was devastated, perhaps maybe for the second or third time. And so Reverend Dibelka wanted me, wanted All Healers Mental Health Alliance to provide healing services, trauma-related services to the community. And I really was touched that he reached out to me and wanted this kind of support. So we, Dr. Martin and I, talked about this, and we came up with some plans. We identified one of our members who's a licensed psychologist in the state of California, Dr. Kamani Norrington-Sands, who made herself available to provide telemental health services to that community. And we worked with Reverend Dibelka in organizing a special, I guess, an honor of the people who lost their lives and their homes in the horrible fire 1 year later, in September of 2023, yes. And actually, Dr. Martin and I went to Weed to be there in person with Reverend Dibelka and the members of the Weed community. It was quite an amazing experience, all in the shadow of the beautiful Mount Siskiyou.
Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta, which is in Siskiyou County. But a fantastic experience connecting with that community, getting to know them, and working with them on the things that they identified were their critical concerns about the education of their children, which had been suffering, and about the trauma, the layered trauma that the community had experienced. So we're just so grateful for that opportunity to collaborate, and now we have Reverend Dibelka here to tell the story. Thank you.
Thank you. I was on the long-term recovery group for the mill fire in Weed, and I was at a loss because here in this county that is the size of the state of Connecticut, with fewer than 40,000 people, I have exactly one historically black community, which was formed during the Great Migration as a result of the building of a lumber mill. And so consequently, everything was tied to this mill, and that was the point of origin that burned down their neighborhood. And there was no health care. Historically, no health care in the city of Weed. And there's definitely no mental health care. And so here I am coming in as the emotional and spiritual well-being lead and saying, what can I do for you? And what was identified was the need for clinical level mental health care. I had no idea what to do. I found myself in St. Louis, Missouri, listening to Dr. Primm present, and it's like, thank you, God. This is what I needed. And so the connection was made, as you heard. Now let me fast forward to the 1-year celebration, the celebration of renewal and rebuilding. I had the honor of hosting the doctors, as I call them, and at that point everything pivoted. Because even though I live in the same city, not too far from Lincoln Heights, I lived in the white part of town. I'm a white guy. And I'm a preacher from the next town over. My church is in Mount Shasta, 8 miles away. And even though I attended the Community Baptist Church right there in Lincoln Heights from time to time, I was still... And I kept hearing the same story. This is what we need, this is what we need. But the doctors gave me legitimacy. And within a week or two after their visit, we discovered that clinical mental health care that I had secured a grant through CDP, Center for Disaster Philanthropy, and that they had secured Dr. Norrington Sands to help with, was in fact not what the mental health concern was. It was the need for peer-to-peer processing and training people how to facilitate this processing. And so consequently, we began to set up circles for the community, one of which is still going, and I'll tell you, the other day I dropped in on them, and they have gone beyond processing the trauma of having 2 fires burn through the city in the course of 8 years, to, when I went in, they were talking constitutional law 2 weeks ago. And what's going on and how it affects them, their communities, their families, the whole bit. So this circle has evolved and become more than I could have ever dreamed. But one of the things we heard loud and clear was education, our children. How are we going to take care of this in the future? So we sponsored another one of these peer-to-peer circles with an adult facilitator in the Weed High School. And of course, we started with the young ladies, because the young men, of course, had no problems. And the young ladies group grew. And it got to the point where we were getting ready to split off and have 2 groups because we didn't have room, when a couple of the young men came to the door and said, hey, can we sit in with them? And we said, absolutely not. You guys are guys. You'll start your own circle.
That's right.
And so we now have 2 circles going in Weed High School for our young adults. And again, it's gone beyond these people, these young people who have, in the case of the first fire, actually been picked up by adults, some of whom they don't even know, taken out of their house so that they can be safe. And in the next fire, they were picking up the older adults and carrying them out of the houses so that they could be safe. This was weighing heavy. And we've gone beyond the processing of that trauma into what it means to be a young Black person in America today, specifically in Siskiyou County, where there's one community, and what it means to be those young people, to become leaders in a community where unfortunately the older generation that teaches has moved out of town to seek medical care following this disaster. And how we as a city can come together and work with them to allow them agency to grow into the people that they need to become. Now, we haven't solved the problems. We're working on it. And we were looking forward to the future. And you can be darn sure that as I run into another closed door, I'm more than happy to call. And that if anything happens in the 26 counties that I represent as the Missioner for Disaster Resilience for the Episcopal Diocese of Northern California, if the doctors call me and say, hey, could you go check on this town for us? You go check on this community? I'm starting the car and I'm going. No questions asked.
Now, Reverend Dibelka, because no, it's all good. You don't have to. I just wanted to just say thank you for your partnership and just one nuanced clarification, because I want to make sure that we're honoring our values, which is we may have, as a sidebar, gave you some legitimacy, but one of the important pieces was connecting directly with the community, right? And I think that part, I think, is what was the foundation of folks trusting that we really are who we say we are, that we're really here to help, and we're not going to run, and we're not going anywhere, bringing in resources, showing up to the event, and connecting with people in real ways. And I think that is the epitome of the work. And then the other thing I'll say is a number of the community members needed help organizing. I know you were helping you organize the organizers in the community, because I think what people don't realize is that organizing is a skill. Freedom and power is a skill, and that we always don't get the opportunity to practice. So sometimes part of capacity building is helping people find their own power, and being able to figure out what is it that we really do want and need. How can we leverage what we have in order to do those things, and what kind of resources do we want to advocate for in order to support us? So I just want to say explicitly name that and say thank you for being an amazing partner, and appreciate you. And then we got called into Illinois by a gentleman who happened to come into the room at the right time. Someone I mentioned earlier who is amazing, who's looking at me like, what are you about to say right now? And that is the wonderful Marcus Coleman. So we got an email from Marcus Coleman connecting us with Miss Princess Shaw from Chicago, from Lawndale, who will introduce herself and tell her own story. And what I will share is, so that I can brag on her a bit, is that by the time we had gotten involved, she had already organized community members, already organized press conferences to get more media attention on the 2023 flooding that happened in Chicago. Anybody heard about this flooding that happened in Chicago in 2023? Well, I know you. What's fascinating is it's one of the worst disasters that Cook County experienced in decades. And it was such a low media attention event. And it disproportionately impacted the south side, west side, and then the south suburbs of Chicago. and connecting with Princess. At first we were like, you don't even need us, Princess. You got it going, you're moving everything forward. But really what the role was and our support was about connecting her, helping to explain some of the nonsense. Because what oftentimes happens is folks who are experts in emergency management or on the VOAD side will sometimes talk to community organizations. I don't know that it's intentional per se, but they speak to them in that acronym, jargon, language. They don't know what you're talking about. And so being able to help translate what these acronyms and what all this stuff means, what is the funding process, and all of those other things. I mean, it just has been an honor and a privilege to work in support of Princess in Light Up Lawndale and the long-term recovery committee that she facilitated getting started in Chicago before the city and the state was even really have their act together. So I am going to pass it over to the wonderful, amazing Miss Princess Shaw of Light Up Lawndale on the west side of Chicago.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction, but I will say that I am just your average plain Jane. I just saw that there was a huge need, and I know for the city of Chicago, there were a lot of people that were not talking. And so I will say you have a lot of gatekeepers that are holding on, and then as Dr. Martin says, because they don't understand, then they force you to be comfortable with not understanding as well. And what I mean by that is simple things like IA, PA, FEMA dollars, where they go, how they go. And when this flood happened, we were in the midst of a new administration that was switched out from the old administration, which I think the old administration barely knew what they were doing. And so I cannot tell you how many times I've called Dr. Martin and said, hey, I'm just gonna burn the entire town down and try it all over again. Whoever survives, survives, right? And so she's like, no, can't go that far. So between Dr. Martin, and then we have a really, I have to give a shout out to Marcus Coleman. He definitely, when I got to Washington, he was like, yeah, I've been getting all these emails about you. And I'm like, yeah, that's me, yeah. I'm the troublemaker. And then I also want to make sure I give a shout out to Matthew Raymond, who is our AHMHA person. And the reason why we give
What's AHMHA?
Oh, that's right. AHMHA is our Illinois Emergency Management Agency. So the state version of FEMA. So I've been learning all this stuff. Aren't you proud of me? And so the reason why I want to give him a shout out is because then he connected me with a few people that are in this room now, like Claire over at SBP. So please give them a round of applause. I call her all the time and are like dragging her. She's like, no, don't burn the town down. No, I'm agreeing with Dr. Martin, don't burn it down. And then World Renew was in here earlier, but I know they had to check out. They came to Chicago 3 times and they're only supposed to come once, right? So we definitely want to give them a shout out. And Team Rubicon. Team Rubicon was another disaster company, and I was just sharing some information earlier about them. And so I was just like so overjoyed to see all these different groups be there. And the other one, Islamic Relief USA. They actually came out 3 times as well. But it helped me to not feel like I was like in a twilight zone, because when you're talking to someone and you're talking above what they understand, a lot of times they will look at you like you're crazy and have you feel like you're crazy, but you're not. It's just that their insecurity of understanding of what's going on, and they don't want to show that to you with the level of wherever they are in this world, right? And I'm being polite when I say that, is that you cannot be better than me because you're just an average person and that's how they look at you, unfortunately. And the only thing you're trying to do is help. And so I know that I'm very persistent because I used to play basketball in high school. So we had to be persistent, we had to run our track and all that other stuff. So there was many a time people were intimidated about me because I was out working them. And what I mean by outworking is that, hey, if someone's calling me in the middle of the night, I'm not gonna call you in the middle of the night, but what I will do is have that email waiting on your desk by the time you get to your office to have this conversation, and then follow up with you within 24 hours, because the 72-hour rule is out the window for me because we're dealing with a disaster. And so being able to say, hey, did you get my email? Did you see it? Are we talking? Are we not talking? Do I need to find somebody else, or do I need to go over your head? And so a lot of times when I was doing that, people got offended. Because as I explained to them, my main concern was not making them look bad, but more so making sure that this person was able to get help. And even now, 2 years later, we have people that are still living with mold in their basement. And it's a shame, right? And it's just like, for me, what I was taught, or how my little slogan comes up, is that when you're having a sentence that you're saying, you cannot say do not and don't in the same sentence. You have to pick either or, right? And so I hear a lot of that when I'm talking to the city, and it's just like, it's very, very discouraging. But the thing that keeps me uplifted and keeps me going is the people, right? Because they're like, hey, don't worry about it. And I have it now where 2 years ago, I had many seniors that I was working with, and they're like, oh, well, it's never gonna be any different. It's always gonna be the same. The city's gonna be the city. Where now they're moving and learning what they're all gonna do. A lot of them didn't know that. They're also moving to the point where they know what their mayor's job is to be, what their congressman's jobs are. And now, I don't even have to call them anymore now. Like, I used to call them, like, come on, you can't give up. We gotta go have a conversation. We need to meet. Now, they're forming these meetings. Exactly what the Reverend's saying is that they're forming these meetings now, like, hey, we want to have a meeting now, right? And so I am so overjoyed that Dr. Martin and Claire and Team Rubicon and Marcus Coleman and Islamic Group USA and World Renewal was like, hey, don't burn the town now, right? Because I feel like now it's a bigger difference because that is the voter base. And in Chicago, they know our youth don't vote. So they're not afraid of me, they're not afraid of the youth. But when they heard about the seniors getting together, that's how we were able to get that first $5 million from the mayor. He heard that they were coming downtown, he was like, oh no, I can't have that happening, no. $5 million, press conference, right? The day before we were going downtown, like no BS. He was like, here's $5 million. And this, of course, everyone's like, yeah, I'm like, no. I was the first one, like, no. But Princess, we got $5 million. That is not enough. I asked for 50. And so everybody's trying to calm me down again, because I'm right back to trying to burn the town now, right? And so, calm down, it's cool, we got $5 million, because in my mind, I've already been out. I've seen none of these estimates. Working with SVP, we've seen no estimates that were less than $30,000 worth of damages. And so in my mind, back in the day, before I started doing this on this path of advocacy, I was an accountant. So as soon as I seen it, you should, if you guys ever get a chance, please look up this, the July 16th, 2023 press conference with Mayor Johnson. I am in there, I am pregnant at the time, so excuse my extra healthiness. But you can see my face, I'm like totally disgusted. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here. And they're like, come on, like, you see me walk up there, they were all up there, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, they're like, come on, I'm like, they're like, come on. And I get up there and talk like, yeah. And you hear the sarcasticness in my voice. And people are like, could you have like toned that down some? No, not at all. Because this is gonna be played over and over again. I want people to understand with my tone that I was not with it, right? So fast forward to now, the seniors, when I was here, they've been calling me and they're like, hey, with that $5 million, they were actually able to put a program in place, which I have been beating the city over the head about that as well. It didn't make sense. If you're more concerned about my health, what does my income have to do with it? Exactly. And so the constant barriers that are being put in the way, and I keep the as my grandparents used to say back in the day, the porch light on and say, hey, we can get this done, right? But every time now, the seniors, I am so proud of them, now they're going to tell their neighbors, right? Whereas before, like, that's not my concern. I had one guy calling me when I was here, he was like, hey, I was able to talk to 5 of my neighbors and they all need help, right? He was like, do you have one of the applications? And I'll have them, because I have it highlighted with the areas they need to fill out. Like, I'll have them do it and we'll come up to your office on this day. So now being able to engage them to have more ownership in their community, where we haven't seen that in at least 40, 50 years. Because when I first started on this journey, they're like, I don't want to make my alderman mad. No, they're not gonna like this. And so now to see that change, and like I told all my seniors, it only takes 3 or 4 of you guys. And that's why I keep having the press conferences and the news conferences and the different things, so they can see at the end of the day, you're making a difference. Like I told them, I'm just making sure that I'm bringing that light to you, and you guys are the ones that are shining. And so that just kind of goes like, segueing to light up Lawndale, but it's actually lighting up the entire city of Chicago, because they are the power. And at first, their light was gone. I'm not gonna even say dim, it was gone. And they were like, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna deal with it. I can't explain to you now, when I asked for paperwork, thanks to Claire and her team, they were being so nice when we were doing FEMA appeals, we started there. And so now when I go to ask them for paperwork, they're like, oh, you need what? Oh, I got that right here. Oh my God, I can't tell you how many times Claire was like, Princess, call Ms. Johnson. We've been asking for this document for 4 weeks in a row, and then Ms. Johnson just didn't know where it was. Or she was embarrassed to tell us that the paperwork was in the basement that flooded, and she didn't know where to go in order to replace that paperwork, right? And just that communication and the working together that I've been a part of with Dr. Martin and all of the VOAD groups is so refreshing, and it keeps me going, because when I try to have that with the city, I immediately get shut down. And it's very sad, because these are the people that pay their taxes and sometimes overpay their taxes and get nothing in return like this. So I digress, and that's all I have. But thank you guys for coming out today. I appreciate everyone that's here for talking to me.
I'm gonna get this. Oh, here. And.
Okay, so the next disaster.
Oh, yes. Wait, hold on. Okay, yes, you're right. I'm wrong, y'all, my bad.
Okay, so the next disaster we'll talk about briefly is Hurricane Helene, which, as you all know, affected a number of different states. And we were very eager, we wanted to do everything, and of course, Dr. Martin, with her wizardry, was able to create, our first sit rep with a map of all of the states that were involved, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, so on and so forth. And we sought to get a foothold in all